Hey gang, what's up? Welcome back here to another edition of Intuitive Angling, and thanks a lot for checking out today's video. Guys, today we're going to address some common misconceptions of what people think bass do in the fall time of the year as far as their sort of like their movements and behavior. It's not near as clear cut and dried as what people think, and it's a pretty complex time actually. I probably think that the fall period of the year, divided up into early, mid, and late fall, is probably got so many different variables in it that can be a little intimidating. So what I'm going to try to do, guys, is sort of give you a foundation and sort of explain a little bit what bass do in the fall time of the year that's sort of like against the grain of what a lot of people think, or a lot of what have you read on it or watched videos on it. So we'll get into that. Real quick, guys, since it is fall coming up, I want to invite you to swing by and check out our fall lake map breakdowns at fishthemoment.com. I'll put the link in the description to all of our lake map breakdowns in there. These are the greatest resource you can find to find out more about your favorite lake or a lake you've never been to. It gives you a bunch of 40 good GPS waypoints to begin your search at, and how to fish, advice on how to fish them. You can download them straight into your depth finder. So I'll put the Fish the Moment lake map breakdown link in the description of this video. Much appreciated. Okay, one of the things, one of the many myths in bass fishing, or oversimplifications, is the whole, conversation of seasonal patterns. Now, seasonal patterns, as time goes on, we learn more and more about seasonal movements and seasonal patterns of bass that sort of maybe contradict a little bit that what we've known before or have heard before. And first, before I get into this, I just want to reiterate, this is a non-live scoping video. If you guys fish with live scope and use live scope, seasonal patterns don't mean anything, because it's just roaming around in open water until you see fish out there, which there's always a population of those fish living out there, unless every fish is on the bed in the springtime spawning. So this is for traditional bass fishing techniques. So one of the biggest myths that I think about when people talk about fall fishing is that you need to fish the back end of the creeks. This has been a common myth in bass fishing forever. It's like it was real popular back in the 80s and 90s that in the fall time of the year, fish started to move to the back of the creeks, and that's all you needed to fish. And while some fish do that, some fish will move in the back of the creeks, that is just the tip of the iceberg to what these fish are doing in the fall time of the year. First of all, one of the realities in bass fishing, now again, I'm talking about real bass fishing, traditional bass fishing, and I'm not talking about live scoping in open water. One of the traditional realities with that is that there is not these mass movements and mass changes in the fish movement and behavior all of a sudden just because the season rolls around. I have found out, one of the things that I can tell you about bass fishing from my own experience, one of the realities and truths of it, is that if you find a good area that's got a combination of cover, access to deep water, a little bit of diversity in cover, it's good all year long. The fish will literally use it all year long. Say, for example, if you've got a boat dock on a lake you fish that maybe is positioned where you got part of the dock is in shallow water, part of the dock is in deep water, it's close to deep water, maybe there's some brush piles around it, there's literally bass going to live on that dock 12 months out of the year. There's going to be fish that live there all the time. And these fish don't move around like people think they do. There's this, we've been instructed and taught to think that it's like, okay, here it is August and September, they're going to start getting into their fall transition, all the fish are going to start moving and doing this and that. That's not how it works, guys. It's really not. There is very, very subtle movements amongst the fish out there, and because there are different populations of fish that live in different type of areas, and some are individuals, some are little wolf packers, some are in bigger schools, there's not one shoe that fits all out there. The things that do change, and the seasonal changes that do occur within bass fishing, occur more in your presentations and your lures than they do the bass movement behavior. It's like, I'm getting ready to go up to fish. I got 2 tournaments up at Lake of the Ozarks over the next 3 weeks up there. And a lot of these places that I'm going to fish, and a lot of these places where everybody fishes, We fish them all year. We fish these spots all year long. The only thing that changes is our presentations and the techniques within those areas. So from that standpoint, one of the things you need to remember about fall fishing and fishing in general is good spots are just good spots. I mean, there are certain points that are good all the time. There are certain stretches of bank that are good all the time. There are certain stretches of rock transitions that are good all the time. But you have to learn how to adjust your techniques and your presentations within those areas. Now, those techniques and presentation changes are not set in stone either. This is another reason why bass fishing is so difficult, is that you can't go back to the same areas with the same baits every single year and catch them consistently. You might once in a while, but most of the time there's some environmental change. The water level may be a little bit different. The water temperature may be a degree warmer or cooler based upon the weather patterns. There may be more algae or plankton in the water one year than the other. You may have different weather patterns that have positioned the fish differently on the time that you're there. And every one of these changes in those variables out there make lure presentation and lure techniques and colors change every year. So ultimately, you have to experiment. You have to figure out what the bass want every single fall, lure-wise. Now, like I said, I don't think area-wise are that big of a change, because I can go down at Table Rock Lake, and there's a couple points down there. I don't care if it's October, January, August, May, whatever. I'm going to catch fish on these certain points down there every year. My lures are going to be different, but I'll catch them off the same ones. So anyway, piece of advice I'll give you guys in the fall time of the year. Fall time of the year is a good time to downsize unless you're fishing some type of bait that is close to the surface. If you're fishing like a topwater lure or a big swim bait or a glide bait, in the fall time of the year, the fish will come up and hit those big baits. But if you're fishing anything else, like something in the middle of the water column or something on the bottom, it's always better to downsize during the fall time of the year and into the winter as you get there too. You're just going to get more bites, and you'll still catch quality fish with it, but that's sort of the pattern that I've seen. So anyway, guys, point of the video, don't put a lot of emphasis into seasonal patterns and movements as far as what the fish are actually doing. There is some reality to that. I'm not saying that there's not, but it's more about adjusting your lures and your presentations into that. But regardless, you still have to put yourself around where most of the fish are going to be. So yeah, for example, there's probably going to, as fall goes on, there's probably going to be more fish up in shallow water than there was in August or July. There is some movement like that, but it's just not to the extent that we think it is. So
Daddy,
what are you doing?
can you help me cut this
Huh?
Can you help me cut this plastic?
Okay.